to Science Headliners. Please welcome our host from Linda Hall Library, Vice President for Public Programs, Eric Ward.
In 2012, Major General Johan Jooste, a veteran of 35 years of military service, took on a retirement gig like no other. He was appointed Director of Special Projects at South African National Parks to battle what some believed to be an unwinnable war against rhino poaching in the famed Kruger National Park. General, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Eric. Good for you also to make time to listen to this part of the world.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you as part of our series. And the General has detailed his work at Kruger in his latest book, Rhino War, with co-author Tony Park. And it's a fascinating story. It's an incredible story of what you were up against. If we could go back to 2012, how serious was the rhino poaching in Kruger? If you could just describe it for people.
Yes. I think the poaching was a scourge. And I knew it, but nothing could pay me for what I found there. We at that stage could lose 3 rhino a day. You'll fly in with a helicopter and you'll see 3 carcasses lie on an area as big as a football field. And it was just relentless. And people would say, but you're the general, you have all the means now, you have helicopters. The roundabout boundary of Kruger is 1,000 kilometers. They can come in any place on that 1,000 kilometers or in that 2 million hectares of land. It was a runaway train. Nobody could have really expected that with the escalation of the market in the Far East, it could have gone that far, that fast, and then the seemingly never-ending war.
And you mentioned 1,000 kilometers. Kruger is such an immense park. It's like a small country, right? And the eastern border is an international border with Mozambique. So that itself presented an interesting challenge, right?
The eastern boundary with Kruger, with Mozambique, is 350 kilometers. And at that time, it was a hostile border. And yet, let me hasten to add, we could get around to many parties in Mozambique, get the poaching down from there from almost 80% to just over 30%. Again, my message, it can be done.
What were some of your biggest challenges in creating a militarized anti-poaching unit in Kruger?
Eric, I was not embedded, I was inserted by design. The preparation for my deployment was not very well communicated. It was an emergency measure and then communicated rather decisively and maybe too strong to all the stakeholders. So you had a park with an external person coming in, taking over the chief ranger post. You had the army and police already there, not very impressed with what was happening there. And all around you, in Mozambique and everywhere, there was this emphasis, this uncomfortable attention to the general that will now sort this out. And then, of course, what you find there is not that there was nothing. There was a ranger corps not structured, not trained, not supported to fight that war. And I know the war is a loaded world. So one had to start with the rangers and work it up then to the other means and aids to give the rangers the best chance they could to come out best in the context that we had.
And you were dealing with an international crisis, right? It just wasn't as simple as a few poachers in Kruger, but it was just international syndicates. How did that play into your strategy to combat poachers?
I could formulate the strategy within 1 month quite accurately, and the grand strategy was clear the park from the outside. Like the layers of an onion, you've got to start in the consumer countries, work through the international networks, onto the networks on the continent, in your neighboring countries, in the SADC region, in your country, and then onto your own perimeter, and even inside the park. Strategically, you have to manage demand. You've got to give the communities ownership around the park, and then you sit still you have to be persistent and unpredictable inside the park to face the challenge, because they were all over. It can be compared to Ukraine today, and everybody wanted to help. Everybody was concerned. Some people helped, other did not. You had to face that threat, and you had to fast track the retraining of your rangers while you lead them well, while you build morale, while you look after their wellness to day face the incursions into the park.
Now, these rhino poachers are after rhino horns, right? They're worth thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars on the international market. What happens when poachers? If you could describe for people what happens when poachers kill a rhino.
The barbarity that we saw every day, that is what got to all of us. Some other help. People often ask me, is it emotional? Yes, you've got to control your emotion. They would infiltrate into the park, walk 20, 25 kilometers that night, lie, observe where water is, where the rhino are, where the rangers are. Second or next day late, they will kill the rhino, chop the horn and run. And they will come home with that bag of horn. A set of horns can be up to 7 kilograms, and they will get a convenience store plastic bag of money that in South African terms can be over 100,000 South African rand. I know rand is not a lot, but 100,000 rand is still a lot in this part of the world. Yeah. And you mentioned networks, that they were sent there by the networks. We have to even to this day, collapse the networks. The poacher, that is how it manifests immediately in the park. Behind that is the networks that really earns the big money, and from where they mobilize the poachers around the park.
How important was the use of technology in your war against poaching?
Eric, apart from the first priority was the state of the rangers, the mission readiness of the rangers. But concurrently, one had to look at the air wing. We doubled the air wing up to 4 helicopters and a light aircraft. We established a K9 unit, and I compare that with technology also. Specialized rangers, an investigative capacity, and then concurrently also technology. That means sensors that could range from radar to camera traps to seismic to acoustic sensors that you mount in various places. And that we had to experiment with, and it's expensive. But to get to a point where you at least give the rangers the benefit of situational awareness. And once you can see with the sensors, you have to have connectivity. It's not a place where you have 3, 4, 5G. There's nothing. You have to set up communication networks so that the rangers can benefit from the situational awareness that you're going through various sensors in various parts of the park.
Yeah, it's just that's what amazed me when reading your book. Again, the book is Rhino War, and just the monumental logistical challenge you had, in addition to the personnel and technological challenges. What's the outlook today for rhinos in South Africa? Is there hope for them?
They say there's only one good general, and it's a general who win. And I would have liked to say we won this war, in my terminology. Great gains have been made. The mischievous people would say that the numbers of poaching are down only because we have fewer rhino. That is not true. We must look at the whole country and what we've done to the national herd since we started in Kruger. In Kruger, they've dug in their heels now to make sure that in certain areas, selected areas, they're almost down to zero poaching. But reportedly, there's a quarter of the rhino left. What is to be expected after 15 years of plundering and collapsing minimum of networks? So there is hope. We started the previous decade, or 2010, about there with about 23,000 rhino, and today have 16,000 left on the continent. 12,000 were poached. So only that, the fact that we could offset some of the poaching and get population growth should indicate that we are on the right path. It's a long road. It's a long road in international wildlife trade, and specifically in Africa, South Africa, and on the rhino. is a severe challenge that will require a persistent and concerted effort over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. And you left the South African National Parks, I think a year or two ago, and you're now a program manager for the Peace Parks Foundation. What is your new role now?
Eric, just one step back. I was 60 when I assumed the post 10 years ago. So I spent 3 years in Kruger National Park, then 2 years with the other 21 national parks, specifically Rhino carrying parks. Another 2 years I could spend working in our provinces in the provincial parks. And I'm in my third year now with the Peace Parks, roping in the private sector. The private sector in South Africa owns more than 50% of the rhino. So the recipes and the lessons that we learned, we apply now countrywide and here and there also in neighboring countries. Looking again at proactive measures. How do we make sure that we are ahead of the curve in terms of intelligence so that we can be more proactive, but also taking care of those protection measures in the various parks and protected areas to give the rhinos the best chance?
Well, yeah, you're doing great work, and I would highly recommend the book to anyone interested in conservation topics. The book is Rhino War. General, let me end the interview with my 3 for the road. Three quick questions. Just give me the first thing that comes to mind. Question number 1: Are you watching the World Cup? Are you a soccer fan?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I'm not a soccer fan, but I love sport. I watch it.
Okay. Who's your favorite team to win? Do you have a favorite?
The Netherlands.
Okay. They beat the U.S. A couple of days ago.
Yes.
What's your go-to specialty when you braai?
Ribs. Any ribs.
Okay.
Beef rib, pork rib, or lamb rib.
All right. And if you would visit Kruger National Park as a tourist, which I'm sure you have, what's your favorite part of Kruger?
The remote northern parts of Kruger, towards Sangwesi in that area.
You know, that's one area we did not go to. We went as far north as Oliphants, and we didn't get to the far north. So I will definitely, we want to visit again. So I will keep that in mind and head north next time. So, General, thank you.
You'll see fewer animal, but you'll experience the wild better.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. Yeah. So, General, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to following your great work in conservation of rhinos.
Thank you, Eric. Much appreciated. All the best.
Science Headliners has been made possible by the generous donations you make to the Linda Hall Library.